All right, Keith and Joe, I appreciate all your work that you've done so far, and the standards has been amazing. And what I wanted to do is to help bridge the gap between the standard and what people do on an everyday basis. And so, what I want to do is I just want to go kind of go over a little bit about innovation and what I see of it, and then from a practitioner's point of view, and then we can go into creating a mental model so that we can actually achieve the standards that people were working towards, and so meeting those standards on a regular basis, and so and having a mental model which they can check themselves along the way. And we I used a mental model called 80/20 with the Foot Classroom, and getting people the idea of how should you design your lessons. From a how much of a teacher should be in front. I mean, teacher take control of the marker, and how often should the kids have control of the marker, and really looking at student ownership and who owns the learning in the classroom, and making sure that we're designing our lessons with that in mind. So the vision really, vision and school innovation is really determined by the consistency, we know, and the depth of which a school system can create value and benefits for others, right? That's our main role as an educator, is that we create processes, we're expert staff, we have resources, and how much of that is benefiting students in the long run for what they're going to see, all right? And so, that's the question that we always have, when we do some accreditation, evaluation, and so forth. The vision of what we have, the standards is the values in which we have, but the innovation is a result of the benefit we produce. And so, um, the vision that we have for the school, the standards that we set, that's our values, our values, and then in the result of that, a result of our process, hopefully has great benefit, and then and is most innovative. Now, one of the things that we can look for in a lot of these things, the school system really has, we look at models, and looking at evaluating people. Can they create a clear and concrete direction? Can they produce a work environment that's healthy and team-based and collaborative? Can they produce teachers who are most passionate, designed with the end in mind, lifelong learners, continuous improvement? Can it produce students who are ready to change the world, right? They produce value that is attractive to universities and employers, can connect to parents with local and global communities, and can produce a consistent and successful results based on their process every single year. So in general, these are some questions that we have, for school systems going in. So the relationship of innovation and benefit is really based on the perceived value that someone else has it. Right? If someone else values your process, like an accreditor or a student and their parents and so forth, that's when you're working most innovatively, right? And so, you can even look at Google's mission statement from, how do they see that, uh, working towards, creating benefits for other people, is that when you say, what's their mission statement, right? Gathering the information, making it accessible and useful for people, right? Creating value around their work, right? So even Google has that similar mission. And when you have that high value as similar as Google, it's considered great innovation. You know, what we offer is perceived highly valuable for another person. We are considered working most innovatively, and that can go from someone who owns a school, from like let's say a board of directors, and they're working with their CEO, or your principals working for their staff, or the teachers working with students. Everyone has what they want is that value out of it, and so we have to be connected in all those things. And so some of the things that we feel are most valuable in schools are lessons learned, the materials, the processes, the products, the systems, the assistants we have. Is this process worth a little or a lot to another person? And that's what we have to, are always looking for. And another person's always, when they're involved with us, are always looking for that value out of the relationship. So, we have to really understand all stakeholders, as schools do. And so students, parents, teachers, school leaders, owners, community, and government, everybody has, what they value. in the relationship with one another. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to really say, okay, how do we build that consistent way to bring great value in order for school to be most transformational? And that's the bridge. So we know what we're looking for, but how do I work in an innovative way in my school that can, kind of transform my school environment, right? And so, what I did is I came up with a mental model, right? A mental model that allows schools to kind of think through as they're talking to their staff and they're working with their staff. This is something that enables traditional schools to become more innovative. It's systematically transformational, right? And so now, what the CADS stands for is consistency, autonomy, depth, sequencing, and actually frequency. So, and what we want to do is, when we have some methods and procedures and we're looking at your process, you know, does the school have that consistent procedure, methods in place in order to continuously produce consistent value, right? So when you go into a school, is everybody doing the same, having the same mindset, doing similar things, in order of doing it over and over and over, so that students get that, can continuously work towards the common good. And then, do they have enough consistency, right, in their talk and in their methods to accurately measure things and provide direction and make accurate decisions? The other thing is that, we all know that teachers face different conditions. So having the autonomy, the acceptable practice around that. So when you take a look at the flipped classroom, when I started looking at that, I said, well, is there some considerations during implementation that we have to consider, and how much variance do we give a teacher in order to, and then we're still within the foot framework, but they need to meet the conditions and the circumstances that they see. And some of these are listed here, from, the situation, skill levels, the setup of the room, your position, context, history, setting. All those things we can take into account, and so we may use 80/20 in a different way, shape, and form, but we plan on, what we do is we always provide that consistent approach of how we look at it, and then based on our circumstance, we may have to tweak it or change it. We might get further, might have a student classroom that has students taking full control, or we may have students taking less control based on the circumstance. So, but we always use the 80/20 in our planning. So then we also look at the depth of that. For instance, if we're using 80/20, it's always part of our discussions. Or we're always looking at how do we address things that come up with 80/20, the ideas, the failures, the solutions, the lessons learned around it through the organization to enhance those perceived benefits. So if we're going down a road and it's not helping students, there's no value there, right? So we have to make sure that 80/20 in its initial state, if we need to vary it, the variance is actually implemented based on the value the students need from it, right? So they may need the teacher more or less based on the conditions that they see. Now, the frequency, do you do 80/20 on a regular basis? Is there a certain framework that we use to plan our lessons? Is it consistent? Is there something we plan in a sequential way to produce those results? Is the staff all planning in the same way and all thinking in the same way, in which when we have our discussions, um, they're fruitful discussions, because we're all on the same page. Is there How often do you use 80/20? Is there something that do you use it more or less once a week, or do you use it on a daily basis, all throughout the entire year? So that's something that we have to ask ourselves. So this is the mental model that I wanted to share with you. This is the bridge to get schools from, we have a standard here, and then we have CADS that allows us, allows the leaders to start thinking through their processes and making sure that they can meet those standards that we expect. And so this is why I created it, to make sure that we have the bridge. Yes, we want to meet the standard, but how do I do that in my school, right? And so So this is, something that I threw out and I laid out for some of my schools I'm working with now. It seems to resonate, so I want to share it with you.